of the color of the skin. Run, 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 but so can you hide. The only person talking about love now, brother, is the preacher. And it seems nobody's interested in learning but the teacher. Listen, tell me, will you please? Segregation, determination, demonstration, integration, aggravation, humiliation, obligation to our nation. That's what the world is today.
Two bold, fearless voices in the wilderness of America rise up out of the darkness to light up the world. Elijah Muhammad and Martin Luther King.
We people who are darker than blue, are we gonna stand around this town and let what others say come true? We're just good for nothing, they all figure. A boy's grown up shiftless jigger. Now we can't hardly stand for that.
Elijah Muhammad wrote a letter to Dr. King, inviting him to come to Chicago to speak to his followers. However, as per our conversation at Orchestra Hall after your speech, What is Man? We are hereby writing you to ascertain a date in March or April 1958 for your appearance before the Muslims of Chicago. Dr. Martin Luther King once stated, while I strongly disagree with their separatist black supremacy philosophy, I have nothing but admiration for what our Muslim brothers have done to rehabilitate ex-convicts, dope addicts, and men and women who through despair and self-hatred have sank to moral degeneracy.
Dr. King, Reverend Martin Luther King. Certainly I met with him. We was together to understand each other for the first time. That meeting was a lovely one. He and his wife were two of the most lovely two people that I have to meet as yet. And we all felt like we were brothers and sisters together as never before. Dr. King and I did not have one cross word, no dispute, but agreement that I told him I want to get at the root of the point. And he was with me on it. White people want to fight me, Dr. King.
Dr. King and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were both dreamers and visionaries. Their vision left a blueprint and a challenge for us to either fulfill or betray.
I've got a dream for the world. Peace in the rivers and everywhere. Bridges of steel and love. And cities that smile.
Well, good afternoon. My plate is kind of full. Hi, I'm Poochie Hill. Welcome to another episode of Deadline, and it's dinner's being served. There will be no appetizer today. We're going to go right into the full course meal. I am here again with my guests, Hafiz Farid, and let me look at my notes for a second. we all want to know, what's the untold story? Well, what I'm speaking of is those of us that have been on this journey of life for a minute of time, and those that have not, have heard of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Nation of Islam, and Dr. Martin Luther King, Southern Leaders Conference, and Prince of Peace. I'm sure that you've heard there are two different mindsets of the way that they thought, whereas in essence, they had so much in common. At that point in time when they both came into prominence at different seculars of life, of different times, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was much older than Dr. Martin Luther King. And the disparities that was going on in the country at that time of our self-pride, self-identity, and things of that magnitude, they were driven apart, but in essence, they were one. Brother Hafiz, please get right into your picture in your film, which we've seen a little bit of, The Two Sons That Came from Georgia, but the title is, What's the Untold Story of Two Individuals that Came from Georgia?
Thank you very much, first of all, for allowing me to be on the show Deadline. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's very special to have the opportunity to share this kind of truth that has somewhat been hidden, obscured, distorted. And so to have a show like Deadline that is bold enough and courageous enough to present the truth is really, really a very special thing, and I don't take it lightly. We are now living in a time where almost all the media that's consumed is controlled by a handful of companies. Maybe 4 or 5 companies are controlling all the media that's going into the minds of the people. And so to have an independent media that is willing and open to bringing on truth that has been studied, researched, investigated, and put together in a very educational and uplifting way is a very special honor, and I appreciate the opportunity. The title of the film is Two Sons of Georgia, The Untold Story. And sons in our title is not spelled S-O-N, it's spelled S-U-N. And I named this, I use that spelling as a metaphor to convey that they're not just two native sons, though they were both born in Georgia. They're not just native sons of Georgia. They are both sons in the sense that they are bright lights. They are the two of the most illuminating lights in the darkest period of our history. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. Martin Luther King. They were guiding stars for us. They were, they enriched us. Their light and their guidance fed us, empowered us, and that's why we call them Two Sons of Georgia. They were both not only native sons of the state, the racist state of Georgia, one of the most racist states in the United States of America, a state that one time was at the very center of the Civil War that took place. South Carolina and Georgia were two other states that were vying to be the capital of the Confederacy. So a long history of racism, bloodshed, oppression, and they both were born out of that and shaped out of that history. And they both happened to be, which many people don't know, the sons of Baptist preachers. Both of their fathers were Baptist preachers. Very important note to take in. Both of their fathers were Baptist preachers from Georgia, Southern Baptist preachers. Both of their grandfathers were Baptist preachers. They themselves, at a very early age, as is the case with many children of sons of preachers become preachers themselves. So both of them were young preachers, but both of them had an independent kind of thinking and didn't always agree with the way their fathers presented the gospel. And they were thinking on their own and examining things on their own. So the parallels are amazing. Dr. King's name was not Martin Luther King when he was born. He's a junior, so his father was Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. And his name was not Martin Luther, it was Michael. And he later went to Germany and discovered the German theologian who is the founder of Protestantism, and was so impressed by this man's dedication, courage, that he took the name Martin Luther and dropped that name. When you go back and you read the rich literature of the autobiographies, one that's out now is a 500-page biography on Dr. King called King, A Life, written by a best-selling author by the name of Jonathan Eig. And in this book, Jonathan Eig points out that their family name before King, now going back to Dr. Martin Luther King's grandparents, and great-grandparents, they were ex-slaves, and their family took the name, or was given the name of the slave master, which was Pelham, P-E-L-H-A-M, Pelham. And so they were Pelhams first, and after the Emancipation Proclamation, one of his great-grandparents said, "We not Pelhams no more. We ain't carrying no slave master's name. We kings now. We free." So both men changed their names. The King family changed his name, and Elijah Muhammad was born Elijah Poole, which was the name of a white slave master. And when he came to his senses and got the truth, he said, "I ain't Poole no more. My name is Elijah Muhammad." The parallels are striking. They both married two devout, strong, faithful Christian women, Coretta Scott King and Sister Clara Muhammad. We call Mother Clara Muhammad. Both their names start with a C. Another parallel. Dr. King's father was born in 1897, and Elijah Muhammad was born in 1897, October 7th. So I appreciate the point that you made that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was much older than Dr. King. They were not peers. Okay. Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad were not peers. Muhammad Ali and Elijah Muhammad are not peers. They're all students. And this is not to cast any dispersions or shed any shade on anybody. When you highlight a man who deserves to be highlighted, both these men, you're not casting shade. If I'm highlighting Dr. King, I'm not casting shade on Jesse or Andy or Abernathy. I'm highlighting the leader. You see? And so, but it's very important to know that disparity in age. As I said, Dr. King's father was born in 1897. So when he meets and sits down with Elijah, already an established leader, he's talking to a man who's the same age as his father, born in the same era as his father, in the same state, in the same racist environment as his father. Very interesting. So he comes to the table as a younger man, seeking the wisdom of the elder and trying to understand how we can work together. And a very interesting point about that meeting is, and that's why we call it Two Sons of Georgia, the untold story, because many people don't know that meeting ever took place. There is a common belief that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had a serious meeting and a meeting of minds and strategizing. That never happened. There's a picture that has been circulating for decades of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X together